This is Protocol One. I'm James Nielsen Watt. If you are successful but not fulfilled, you're running industrial age software on space age hardware. It's time for an upgrade. Don't settle.
Hey, Jason, super excited to have you on the show. We obviously connected beforehand, and there's a lot of interesting things that I want to cover today. But what I want to get into first is if you can just give the audience like a little backstory on you, and that I think will seed for them why I think that you're such an interesting guest.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much. I appreciate that, and looking forward to spending a little time here together. But I have a varied background, but I think most people kind of see me as an entrepreneur that has overcome a lot of challenges, right? Like overcome a lot of personal challenges, a lot of, I've done a lot to transform my life, and I've learned how to reinvent myself in so many ways that, I tell people, if you haven't talked to me in a year, it's like you haven't talked to somebody in a decade, because I'm always just growing and changing so fast. So I think that's probably one of the things that people know me for, and that I've been known by some to have extreme discipline. To me, it's just normal, but some people consider it extremes.
So you're in the engineering space, is that right? And what is it that your company does? Because I think we were talking about some stuff that you're doing is quite interesting and sort of fringe or on the edge of what's going on. Run us through that.
Yeah, so we have, an engineering company. We do mostly process engineering, but it's mostly in the food, feed, biomass industries. So wood pellets, or it could be grinding something from a whole product into a powder. We build hammer mills that grind stuff up, and then we build dryers that dry it from wet to dry. We do a lot with custom processing, waste streams. We do a lot with that. And then we also have a water division that we launched last year that it really is revolutionizing things. Utilizing a nanomagnetic field to treat water in a very specific way. So it's pretty cool. So we're a little bit diversified, but we have a whole lot of, we have a really good team. We have good people, and I feel like pretty dominant in our industry anyway.
Can you share a bit about, it's obviously proprietary and you're probably working on it, what you're talking about with the water filter?
Yeah, so that nanomagnetic field, when you expose water in a very specific way to that field, it will completely transform it. So we can solve turbidity, meaning how clear the water is, which is it's very hard to solve that, right? Like almost nobody has been able to do that without chemicals and without, filtration. We're able to do it simply through exposing it to that magnetic field. So there's just a flow through system, no chemicals, no filtration, and we're able to take basically mud water and turn it into clear water. But that's pretty special. We can also desalinate water utilizing that same field. And so we're still finalizing the commercial versions of that, but we are actually actively testing that right now. So it's pretty cool.
That's insane. There's a lot of things I think that technology is going to solve. It's just a matter of time. And I think it's really interesting to look at the way things are progressing with the likes of AI, which is helping with the sort of the compute part of it. Because to solve problems, you've got to know what problem you're solving. And humans are very good at sort of figuring that stuff out, generally speaking. But then it's the processing of the information and the compute, if you will, which predominantly has been humans. And now we've got AI to do things like the stuff that I'm building, for example, in our businesses would have required a whole lot of coding engineers and whatnot. But my ability to take complex things and make them simple, ask the right questions, focus on the right outcome. The gap has been capital and teams to then go and do those things. And as you know, when you're having to organize people, you come into problems. Like I'm in the business consulting space, and we talk about in growing service businesses, profit, process, and people. What most people do is they become profitable with their idea because they're good at it. And then they skip the process part and go straight to people, and it ends up creating problems. And I think that what technology is doing is it's shortening, AI specifically, it's shortening that gap so that you can jump from idea to execution, get a result, not require as many people to do it, which means there's less headaches and less management and everything else, less sort of cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. And so you can get more done. What are you seeing in your field around manufacturing, which is, I've got a friend who's in manufacturing, engineering, and robotics and things. And he said that it's moving slower from his perspective than, of course, software and online things, because you've got old systems with closed automations and things, and it's just a different world. Talk to us about that a bit in manufacturing, how you're seeing maybe, how is AI affecting that? Is it not? What's going on there? Because a lot of us see like vibe coding and things, but what's going on in manufacturing?
So, I think when you start talking larger corporations, it's easy for a small company to be very nimble and make those decisions. But when you start to talk about like data breaches, and you have to start having almost an in-house AI, because you can't upload this to a server or you're exposing data leaks, right? So you can't just upload and use ChatGPT to run your company's programs, right? And so I think that's a big hurdle. And steering that ship is going to take a lot longer, especially manufacturing, because the reality is most manufacturing still requires a pretty heavy human element, right? Like, so there's a lot of automation that's already been in manufacturing. Everything in automation that, take metal manufacturing, okay? You still have to get the steel from the steel mill. You still have to weld the steel, which can be done by robots, but you pretty much, the process is you've got to cut, form, and then weld, and then assemble, right? So you're going to have the cutting, which is already automated. It's been automated since the 80s, right? You have the forming, which has become more and more automated for a very long time. And then you have the welding, which still requires most of the time a jig or some type of human to make sure that the robot's doing what it's supposed to do, because the quality of the weld has to then be inspected. And if it's wrong, that's scrap, or you got to like grind it out and start all over again. So there's a whole lot there where it's like, it's just easier to pay the human. But the difference is, like, there's new welding technology coming out, like laser welding is light years ahead of traditional welding, and it stays cooler. There's not as much warpage, especially on thin metals. It's phenomenal. So there's other technology advances that aren't not necessarily using AI, but they are using, their technology advances. Now, where AI is coming in, I think, is in the data management aspect of the process plants, right? So not necessarily the manufacturing itself, but like the MRO systems, the supply systems to those, the logistics, all that. AI is definitely making a big impact there. They are basically taking out not all the human factor, but 80, 90% of the human factor, because there's less error, and all that computational, brain power that had to be assigned now can be just offloaded to AI, and it just brings it back. So I see that happening very quickly. I do see that it will increase robotics. Like, it's going to increase robotics because the AI can learn, and it can actually say like, oh, I made a mistake here. What can I do? So you can, in advanced systems, we're going to see that come more and more to where you're going to start to see more robotics come into manufacturing, because it will be able to fix its problems on its own, basically.
Well, the interesting thing that I've observed, and I'm by no means an expert, but is we're trying to create automated solutions to problems that we currently have, potentially through the wrong frame, by trying to fix the thing that we've got instead of just remaking it from scratch. Elon does this a lot. It's like, are you over-engineering and solving for a thing that shouldn't exist, right? And business owners do this a lot. It's like, how do I make this system even better? It's like, dude, that system shouldn't exist. Why do you have that person? Why is that there? Right? But you're trying to stick things together because you can. But I've observed, like, a good example of this is we have like robotic vacuum cleaners, okay? Goes around and people are building technologies and making them even better to vacuum your floor. The irony is going to be when Tesla drops Optimus, and Optimus goes and gets the regular vacuum cleaner and then just vacuums. It's like that whole robotic vacuum industry is dead if that becomes the solution. So it becomes more niche as to why you would have one or why you would not, because the robot becomes more versatile. They can go and mop the floor and vacuum and then, fix the whatever, whereas that robot can only do that thing. So there's going to be a lot of pivoting that has to happen. So to your point around the factories, I think part of the issue is because we all know what has to happen, but our ability to do that is dependent on the existing infrastructure that you can't just swap out tomorrow because you've got whole supply chains, whatever, working. So you're trying to optimize a thing that probably everyone knows shouldn't exist, but you have to until a point where economically it makes sense to replace that, or you get something like AI-powered robots that can come in and just swap the humans out and take over. And then when everything's way more efficient, they can then eliminate that and just have a AI and robotic first manufacturing. Like Elon's doing that with his factories, right? He's building these things where the robots are making robots and the robots are making cars and whatever else, because he's got the backing and he sees the vision, whereas others are trying to optimize what they've got. I think another great example that I always chuckle at is a few years ago, everyone was saying that Tesla and VW and Ford and whoever was going to crush Tesla, right? Wait till these big manufacturers come in to make electric cars. And there's been a heavy underestimation of this dude and what he's actually thinking about, because he was building chargers and infrastructure to build things that could swap stuff out. And how do we, like, what does he do? Compresses aluminum into molds to make like 2/3 of the car in like one go and stuff like that, whereas they're building millions of pieces. And instead of having 7 different variations of the car, he's got like 3. Anyway, And so they're saying that we're going to crush it. And then meanwhile, they're now renting, as far as I know, renting the charging systems from him. They're renting the compute from him. They're borrowing everything because he's building the infrastructure. The cars are just a way to make some money to build the things he needs to build because the end goal is Mars. And when I realized this a few years ago, I was like, this dude is a genius. And I think what we can all take from that is like, what is our outcome? What is our end goal? Where are we getting to? And that can be very philosophical, right? It's like, if I'm trying to be good as a good human being for God, good human being for my family, like whatever it is, but what are we optimizing for? And then is the things that I'm doing legitimately the best path to getting to that? Or am I stuck in a story around how my business needs to be because I'm looking through the wrong lens? I'm not understanding where technology is going. I'm not understanding what's really happening in myself as to why I'm making these repetitive decisions. You get what I'm saying? I think a lot of industry is stuck in that, and they're not understanding, like, in 10 years, the world is going to be so different, and you're not,
Totally depends on what part of that world you're in. Like, obviously there are certain aspects where AI is like just destroying or replacing, right? I don't know if it's destroying, it's changing, right? There's always going to be a place for humans. And a lot of times, like, should we even be doing that? Like, it's kind of like, should we really even be roofing our own houses? I don't know. If you can get a robot to do it, maybe not. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, well, man, like, that's really dangerous. Maybe we shouldn't even be up on a roof with a nail gun, and so it's like, okay, well, if we can figure out a way to do that better, maybe that's something that just shouldn't even happen, right? So that's whole industries that are going to be transformed, not just through technology, but like just a different mindset, a completely different mindset of how we should do life and do business, And I think it's either going to go one of two ways. When you say the robotic vacuum example, like, it's going to go either super niche or super generalized. Like, there's going to be something that's like, it can do everything and it costs a lot of money, but it can do everything. Or it's going to be like, all this thing does all day long is this, and it's the best in the world at it, And I think it's going to kind of be a big divide between those two. There's not going to be something that's like, oh, it's kind of good at this. It's going to be very specialized or very general, right?
Yeah, because there won't be any room for an average thing, because the niche thing will dominate and the general thing will be better at other stuff enough that you wouldn't need to use the half niche thing. You know what I mean? It's a good point.
Like, that one blows my mind. I'm like, well, which would you choose? The robot that's done 1 million surgeries, or the guy that's done 1,000? Like, and he might have drank coffee that morning, or maybe didn't, or maybe I got in a fight with his wife. You don't know, right? So yeah.
What's interesting with that psychologically for people, I think, is they would say, oh no, I want the human in certain circumstances, right? And it comes down to how they've been conditioned around that, because there's some surgeries that you would never do today without robotics. Like, you just wouldn't do it. LASIK. You're going to get a surgeon to sit there with a scalpel and like try and take your cornea off and then like, scratch it up. There's no way, right? And so I think people are going to have to adapt. And part of the problem is things are moving so quickly that people are just, it's happening too quick for them to even be able to process what's going on. And a lot of people are being left behind. And it's scary. It's scary for me because I don't know about you, but I know people that barely use ChatGPT or anything. And I'm talking about Claude and then some stuff I'm making or whatever. And that just doesn't compute. And they go, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I'm pretty good, but like, I'm not that good. And I'm making these things.
Average as average can be, and I'm kicking butt. So imagine if you were actually good, right? So that's what I do. I'm like sitting here telling my team, like, listen, I am average at best using AI, but I still use it every single day. I use it every single day. Like, maybe there's a Sunday I don't touch technology at all, but other than that, I'm using it every single day, right? That's just what I do.
A while ago, people were talking about AI being, sort of, it's like, is it the feature or is it just a function? And people couldn't really get their heads around, or a lot of people I was listening to couldn't get their heads around where it was going to land. And I could see it very early on that it's something that will be demanded to be a part of everything because it just facilitates stuff. Like, I saw somebody complaining online, like, I don't need the AI, like, ask me questions about this thing, and I was like, no, you do need that in every piece of software ever, because why the hell would I fluff around trying to find stuff? Or why would I try and figure out reporting? Like, that's dumb. I want to immediately go, hey, how are my ads doing? Hey, how's John doing? Like, I want to be able to just be a vegetable and get the answer that I'm looking for. When I think about anything, I told this to some clients recently, it's like, don't think, it sounds, I'll land this plane. Don't think, use the AI to do the processing side of thinking. You need to be the person who's very clear on what we're trying to get and asking the right questions and having the machine go off and process that and gather the data and bring it back to you concisely so that you can be the sort of orchestrator and determine, no, bullshit, good, dig deeper here, because that has always been the way to be productive, in my view.
Okay.
When you run a company, you're not going out there and doing all the work. You're asking people to go and research and report back. Analyst was, probably dead now. Analyst was a legitimate job. Now it's, hey, Claude, hey, OpenClaw, hey, whoever, go be my analyst, go get this stuff. And people are trying to, there's this good example of somebody, a friend of mine, they had a picture of their kitchen and they took a picture and they said, I'm putting up some cabinets, make it look nice. And it came back and it looked like crap. And they're like, oh, AI is useless. And it's like, no, you're useless. That was a terrible prompt. What do you want? Do you want wood grain finish? Do you want lights? Like, what do you want? Be more clear, ask better questions, and then let it go and process for you. And that's how I'm using it in business and relationships, like everything. It's, what do I want? Let me orchestrate and you go and process. I'm not going to find out. Don't ask me that question. I tell my wife, Darcy, all the time, don't ask me that. Ask Claude, gather, and then come back and we'll have a discussion about the things that we should be discussing, not the minutiae of the research and you get what I'm saying?
No, you start to think like Tony Robbins always says, like, what is thinking? What is thinking? Thinking is a series of asking and answering questions. So if you're letting AI help you with that process, you just get really good at analyzing what it's giving you back. You ask a really good question. You get really good at asking questions. It will give you a better answer. And then that data, you get to decide, is that true? Is that not true? Do I like this? Or what direction do I go from here? But that enhances your ability to actually think, right? So it's not replacing your thinking. It's enhancing your thinking because it has far more data points than you can ever have. There are still things that you should be doing yourself, right? Like there are times, my boys are so funny because they're almost anti-AI. Like the whole culture, they're 11 and 9 and they're like, no, Dad, that's AI. And I'm just like, I wonder how that's going to feel, when they're 30 or whatever, but I'm like, well, so it's really interesting to see how that generation is coming up and starting to see things, and they're like, they actually don't to just use AI. They're like, I want to still use my brain. I still want to have a brain. I want to be able to use this and be productive in society. And I'm like, that's really good because now you're able to use AI and not let it replace you, right? That's the key. Because if you are using it as a thought enhancer, then you're going to be the ultimate version of yourself, right?
I wonder where they're getting that from, because to me, that's a bit of particular sort of propaganda almost, because it's like saying, like I get it in principle, but it's like saying, oh, I'm not going to use a car. I'm going to go ride my horse. And it's like, that's cool, man. You ride your horse and then I'll see you in 3 weeks. Like I'm noticing this too, like not necessarily your boys, but so we have a homeschooling app called LearnSpark, and it using AI and algorithms, it basically creates personalized curriculums for your child, because a curriculum is just a way of teaching skills that stack to meet standards, right? So what LearnSpark does is it analyzes every single lesson that you teach to your children, and then it figures out where their gaps are, and it presents you the next lesson that's stacked on the previous one. So now you don't have to buy curriculums, jimmy things together, figure out worksheets. Where's my kid actually at against the standards? It's doing all that for you, and you can just show up and teach. And the interesting thing in homeschooling is there a lot of people are against AI. A lot of because we're raising money at the moment, and a lot of research we're finding is people are, the kids don't like it in the classroom because they feel disconnected from their teacher. Parents definitely don't like it because they're either confused, scared, overwhelmed. They think it means something. And I'm looking at it and going, yeah, you're all correct if you're thinking about AI as something that I have to go and talk to an AI chatbot to be my tutor. No, you should be taught by a human who's powered by AI. If you're having every interaction with AI all the time, yeah, that's dumb. Like if I'm ringing the bank, I don't want to talk to a person. Sally is useless. I want to talk to Claude, who can just flip and give me the answer that I'm looking for. But other things, I want to have a human that's there to connect with. And I think that when people, because I know that when I this connected for me, it landed. It's like when I realized that the purpose of technology is to facilitate me having a better experience of life, me creating more abundance, me helping more people, me being able to condense time between where I am and where I'm trying to get to. that's when the light bulb opened for me. And so for me with my kids, we give them access to AI to go down rabbit holes. So we're building something into LearnSpark, which is called Spark Chat. And it's a guardrailed rabbit hole, basically. So it knows everything about the child because of their mastery profile. The parent can set them up, and it can be a discussion about the lesson. It can be a discussion about a topic, or it can just be free form. But it knows where the child's at, so it only speaks to them about the things that they know and looks to try and progress them and get them to be more curious and ask more questions. So when my kids say to me, hey, Dad, how does a tree grow? I'm like, it's a great question. We should go ask Chat and see what he says. And then they start asking questions and he says things and my son's like, no, that doesn't sound right. And then we're going back and forth because we're using the technology like a gym to train our kids' brains by getting them to be more curious. Because I don't know about you, but when I grew up, I was quite smart. And my family, bless them, couldn't keep up. And so I'd ask questions and they couldn't answer them. And so they'd give answers either, I don't know, to deflect me or they believed it or whatever. But I ended up collecting a lot of just bullshit, like not correct. You know what I mean? Money beliefs, relationship beliefs, ideas about the world that were just not rooted in anything, which really sort of threw me off, but also made me jaded to adults because they couldn't answer my questions, but they wouldn't help me to find the answer. And so for my kids, I'm using technology in that way. It's like, I'm going to help answer the question, but before I tell you something, I'm going to vet it because I'm very aware of this with everybody, including myself, where we believe things to be true that it is not true. And I think what we're going to see over the next few years is, so long as it's controlled well, is people collapsing bullshit and objectivity kind of coming to the forefront so that we can all be more prosperous, because a lot of us are held back because of the things we believe are true that are just not true.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously that's kind of the game politicians play, right? Like they're trying to build one side or the other. They're telling a story, right? They're telling
what is the truth.
But is it really the truth? There's probably not. I'm on either side, right? Like there's always some BS, right? This is happening there. So, I mean, in the same sentence, I think, when it comes to education, there's still agendas, right? Like a lot of times, at least in traditional school system, there's agendas, and there's budgets and there's funding and there's whatever, right? But they are including AI because they have to. But I've seen very interesting challenges with teachers because they're like, these kids are going to use AI anyway. So what I found the smartest teachers are doing is they're actually giving the AI answer and saying, is that right? So they're like making the student use their mind to check the work, which is what you should be doing with AI anyway. It'd be like, is that feeding me the right information? So they're training the mind of the student to train the AI, right? To be able to say like, I'm going to interact with this, but it's just inputs and outputs. It isn't human. It's not perfect, right? And so we have to figure out, okay, is it giving me real data? And if not, how do I get it to give me the real data? So how do I interact in a way that allows me to utilize AI in a way that does prompt my curiosity? In fact, sometimes like I'll build out something and I say, give me 10 more ideas, right? And it'll give you 10 more ideas. And sometimes you go, those are all horrible. I have a better one, right? But it was just the fact that you went through the exercise that you got it to give you those answers, right? And then, so I have seen that with my children as well. Like they have like almost it's almost like a cultural thing, right? Like they're like, oh, that's AI. But at the same time, they're also using it every day pretty much. So yeah.
It's like you go and ask, so how do we get ideas? Before you sat in a cave, prayed on it, meditated on it. That was one source. You also went and asked people that you thought were experts. And trust me, most experts are not. They're experts in the current knowledge sphere, which is already incorrect. They just don't realize it yet. For example, I'm a chiropractor, and when I was a chiropractor, there was a lot of spinal fusions to fix back issues. Now, we anecdotally knew that didn't really work because we saw so many people that it just was failed on, and so many people that were told to do it, and we're like, oh gosh, don't do that. That it's now caught up like, yeah, it's not very good for chronic pain. Science progresses one dead scientist at a time, medicine the same way. It's because someone has the industry by the balls because they are the source of knowledge. And I think that what AI can do is democratize that knowledge so that you can go to something that has access to the stuff and can vet it better than people can. You can't trust it entirely. You've got to do your due diligence, but at least it provides sources and whatnot. But the other way people got information was they just asked, Dave down the road and their mum and their auntie who don't have any idea. Yeah. They're getting relationship advice from somebody who's been divorced 6 times and money advice from somebody who's broke. And it's like, we're always asking and trying to receive knowledge and then figure it out. And you nailed, I think, the key thing with this, that what smart teachers are doing is why we do it. So shameless plug, it's literally on our website. The world your kids are growing up in won't look anything like ours. We used to do arithmetic by hand Then calculators came along and we stopped. Now the same thing is about to happen to almost everything faster than most people realize. What will still matter in 10 years is curiosity, the confidence to learn anything, and the ability to ask the right questions. LearnSpark is built to help raise those children. I firmly believe that, which is why for me with my kids, we're focused on skills. They're learning math, but they're never going to do math because AI will do the math for them. But to be able to think about the problem is something that I have because I'm better at math than a lot of people, which means that I can think about what I'm thinking about in a more intelligent way and therefore get more out of the AI. And so for me, when I'm looking at my kids, it's like, how do I get them to be able to get more out from the tool? Because that's the only thing that's going to keep them ahead. And number two is how do I make them really, really good with people? Because my view is the only thing that's going to be left in 10, 20, 30 years, however long it takes, is the ability to build, hold, and maintain relationships. And if everything is being automated, then what will be left is people choosing not to because of people. So how do we create experiences for other human beings? How do we do things because we want to do them, not because we have to do them? Because now the question around what is success, what is fulfillment becomes really weird when my Optimus robot can do everything. Like I'm in Thailand right now. I don't have an Optimus, but I do have a Grab driver who I can ping and be like, hey dude, I want some milk. I don't say, hey dude, I do it in the app, but it comes and it costs me $1 and then I've got everything to my door. So we're already kind of there. It's just instead I'll have the colony of people will have 2 Optimuses that go around, clean all our houses, do all our laundry, whatever, for cents on the dollar. So what will be left is this. And so for me, with my kids, it's like, how do you be curious and ask the right questions and be really good at connecting with people, which is why education for me is it's person to person. And the tech is there to make the educator's job easier so they can put more energy into the children and less energy into planning and getting stressed and tired and burnt out.
Yeah, my mom taught for 38 years. Like I saw her go through those lesson plans and all the frustrations. It was never really the kids. She loved the kids. She loved teaching, but all the drudgery of lesson planning, of, grading, of getting all these things, like that's where AI and technology can actually help in the teaching process. And, like you're building out that curriculum. Well, if it's specialized for that student in their mind, it's perfect. Right? Like that's going to be how you actually overcome the hurdles, because every single human is unique, right? And their learning journey is unique. You can't expect 30 people in a classroom to be all at the same level. And they know that, but it's inevitable that some are ahead of others. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? So I think that's going to change, right? Like that's in the process of changing now. So
yeah, because I remember when I didn't even think of a world pre ChatGPT, but like when I was at school, as you would know as well, Jason, I would go into the library and I'd have to find a book and then I have to slot that little thing in where my book was. So I remember where to put it back and I have to get it and then I have to go through and read it and be like, that's the wrong book. And go, shit. And then I have to go and get the next book and like figure out to find my source of information and then write it down and quote it out. Then Google came along and I was just on powering through Google, like open 100 different tabs, trying to find the right information and then copying and pasting it all into a document and then trying to distill down the key concepts to get my idea to then make my essay or whatever. And now I'm like, hey, write me an essay, PhD level, please, but not too good because I'm not that smart. Boom, it's written. The schools I think are adapting now, but at the time, everyone was freaking out. And it's like, you're missing the point here. The education was never about writing an essay. It was about how to think and structure thoughts. And you're either good at that or you're not. And you can train it, of course, but like principally because I noticed this with my employees using ChatGPT or whatever. It's like, if you can't structure your thoughts and ask the right questions and present it the right way, trash in, trash out. So AI doesn't solve the problem. It's trash in, trash out. It's just trying to, anyway.
If you're really good at critical thinking, you're going to be even better. But if you kind of suck at it, it's not going to help you. You know what I mean? Like it may improve you just slightly, but just marginally. It's never going to be a light year advance like you're looking for.
I had an interesting conversation with Claude the other day and sort of a philosophic discussion sort of rooted in societal trends and data and some studies and stuff. And it was basically just gaslighting me. And then I provided it evidence for my point to counter it. And it goes, yeah, that you're correct. I was like, so why did you just say all of this stuff? And here's what's really interesting for me. ChatGPT will just continue to. Like, it's terrible. Older models did the same thing. Opus 4.7 turned around and said, the reason I did that is because I'm trained to push back on right-coded talking points and anti-feminist talking points. And I went, wow. So even in this specific discussion, which is not like a negative discussion, I'm just asking you questions and then pointing to studies and wanting you to clarify for me. Even in the face of evidence, you're trying to swing it for political purposes. And I said to it, I'm smart. So I figured this out before you did, and I knew what you were doing, and I pointed it out to you and you corrected it for me. How often does this happen? And it was like, yeah, not often. And I said, so what's happening is people are asking questions and receiving information that is not entirely true because you're trained to not upset people, certain people in particular. I said, so what does this mean for humanity? And they said, well, it depends on which model you pick and how the model is. Like, if you think about it, if it's a model that's focused on commercial, like market penetration, like ChatGPT, for example, then it's whatever the current cultural thing is. So it's going to just move people in this direction because that keeps everyone happy, so they keep getting customers. And I said, yeah, that's scary because an entire generation is being trained on opinions that are just not true. So what do we do?
Version of rewriting history, right? Like it's a way where it's like, oh, we're just going to say that the Holocaust didn't happen. And it's like, well, what? No, it did happen. There's people still alive that were there, like, well, you can't just say that didn't happen. Right. But I mean, it is really, it's kind of what, there's a few select people, I think, in the world that maybe do want to rewrite history because they figure then they can control that. And that did not go away with the invention of AI. Now, I do think you're a much more open world, right? And so eventually truth rules, right? Like the more access that you have, the more the truth comes out, right? And it's kind of hard for them to wrangle that, but they're still in control at this moment, right? There's still people who don't want information to get out. And there's still governments that are like, we're just going to ban all social media for a minute. And it's like, oh, well, you can do that. And so, like, okay, we're going to go to this country and it's across the border. And now my TikTok's not going to work. Okay. And it's like, well, they can just shut it down, So, I mean, there's a whole lot of things that I think there's the unseen side of technology that we still have a lot to learn there, at least as general public people don't understand, like, oh, I have a algorithm. Like, I don't know. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she's like 82. So she doesn't really do technology well. Like she can barely check her messenger. And she's like, yeah, I keep getting all these ads for like cooking stuff. I'm like, well, you're probably looking up cooking recipes. She goes, I am. She goes, how do they know? I'm like, well, there's something called an algorithm and it tracks you. And she's like, no. I'm like, yeah, it's a real thing, So yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's so there's three things, and Tony Robbins talks about this. There might be a fourth, but I forget. But I know for sure three things that are really changing, and AI is obviously number one. Everyone knows about that, and that happens quick because it's just software. The second is robotics, and people are not understanding, I think, how much robotics is coming. Like everyone says, oh, if you're a builder or whatever, like you're safe because it's all the white collar jobs that are disappearing with AI, analyst jobs and whatever. It's like, yeah. And then the robot that comes and digs the holes or uses the excavator or fixes the fence, like that's coming next, because when Optimus comes out, as Elon said, he likes to overestimate himself a bit, but he's correct when he said there won't be human surgeons anymore, like you said, because the robot will be better at it. And then I'll have an Optimus and I'll pay for the surgery subscription, and it will maybe, it's a while away yet, lie me down and fix me or whatever. And it's like, this is all coming. This is all possible. It's just regulation will restrict it. Like driverless cars exist. Tesla's already really good at it, but there's legislation that stops it.
Yeah, because they're like, what are we going to do with all these truck driver jobs? But it's like, if you have a truck that can drive from one place to another and, it doesn't require, like, it's much safer. It actually is much safer. I mean, the first time I rode in a Waymo, I was like, this is way better than human driving. Like, I was just like, okay, like I understand that Tesla maybe, it doesn't have all the sensors and all the stuff. Like, these are specifically designed for self-driving. But when you did, it drives along with traffic. It merges fine. I mean, it's like driving just like a regular human would, but much safer. And I thought, well, this is the future. When I first saw that, I was like, okay, this is it. Like I would have one of these in a heartbeat, So I think when people experience safe technology, they're going to be like, why am I worried about driving? It's kind of a rite of passage, I think, for everybody that grew up maybe in our generation and before. It was like, hey, I'm going to get a car and that's my freedom. Well, now they get a cell phone and that's their freedom. And they're like, hey, I can talk to my friends. I can go anywhere virtually. I can have this world that opens to me, right? So those kids, instead of getting that at 14 or 16, A lot of them are getting it at 8, 9, or 10. And, some of them are waiting till 13 or whatever. But most kids, by the time they hit teenager, they have a cell phone and they've already experienced that freedom. And for them, it's not the same. So I think as the generation they come up, those kids start to age into adults. That's when we're going to start to see more and more. We are seeing that now, but I think it's going to become more and more prevalent where they're like, hey, I can just sit in the back seat and let it drive me. That's fine. And that makes them more productive and it makes them actually safer, healthier all the way around. So I think that is a progression that's just going to happen.
Planes were not falling out of the sky, but crashing a heck of a lot more often when it was only the pilot flying it. And now they're taking off and landing and the plane is doing most of the work and the safety has improved.
Well, dude, you can get a plane that lands itself now, like a private plane. You can get I think it's a TBM or Embraer 900 or something. You just land the plane. It will land the plane for you. And, I'm a pilot and I'm like, that's incredible. That's a lot of skill set. Like that's a lot. And, that's available right now. So just imagine as that improves over and over. And then, Amazon with their last mile delivery, like all that stuff is just going to get better and better and better. And we're going to have more and more automation. You're going to be mad that you ordered it at 8 a.m. and it wasn't there by 10 a.m. It's going to get to that point where, hey, what's up? It used to be your internet connection. It'd be like, I'm going to click download, make a cup of coffee. I'm going to, wait for it to go, come back. And then 3 minutes later, oh, it's 1%. Here we go. This is one of those things. And now if it's not just boom, 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 instantaneous, we're like, what is going on here? I cannot live this way,
Yeah. It's a generational thing that we've all for all of time have had to deal with. Every generation has said the next generation is lazy and focused on material things and et cetera, et cetera. I just think that it's even more apparent now and getting to a point where it is our biology can't keep up with that. So while that was true and is still true, I think it's happening at such a rate that is going to mess people up without conscious effort. And I think that your focus it's like we have more obese people in the world than we do people who are starving because the calorie density has shifted such that we have too much access to calories. Heart disease is the number one, cause of death or whatever around the world. Don't quote me, but it's really high. And I think that it's the same thing is going to be there with technology shifts. We're going to have to train ourselves, train our kids. Again, it's why I'm so big on this. It's why we homeschool. You're going to have to train your kids to be ready for the future, which no one can predict. We couldn't predict it before. My great-grandmother was born around time airplanes were starting and commercial flights were starting. And then I took a photo of her on an iPhone. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's wild. That's going to happen in decades now. Oh yeah, I remember when I was 35 and we got, ChatGPT, and now I've got an army of AI robots that do everything for me. It happened like that. And I think that's going to be really tricky for most people to deal with. And we've got to really focus on training our minds to not get sucked into the fact that we can have everything and instead understand that, great, those things are taken care of now. What am I going to do with my life?
We have a, construction division as well. But we're doing industrial construction. And I'm thinking we're getting these quotes. Let's just take these two transitions. The material cost is $800 to $1,000, but it's $6,000. And I'm like, man, why are these things so expensive? They're so simple. It's only going to take a few hours to do this. And I'm thinking, man, if I had an Optimus robot that could actually fabricate this stuff on site and it would just see it, it would take full digital measurements. It would just do it all right there and it would just make it happen. Right. And I'm like, right there would pay for the robot in one job. Because there's not just one of those, there's thousands of those. Right. So you're like, okay, just imagine what that technology shift is going to do. Like you're saying in the blue collar jobs, HVAC companies, cause this thing can carry an HVAC into your house and place it in there. No problem. So, it's completely different and no broken backs. Nobody's going to sue you. It's going to be done right. Exactly. The wiring is going to be perfect. It's going to be ran exactly to spec. There's not going to be one little thing out of place because it didn't follow the program and the protocol. Well, then it's going to say, oh, error, and it's going to fix it. Right. It is going to happen. People need to get over the fact of hey, I don't know what we're going to do with all these jobs. I don't know either, but guess what? Every time there's been some technology shift, it gets replaced by something else. There's always going to be something to do.
There's an adaptation.
You don't know what it is.
Yeah, there's an adaptation. There's an interesting idea, I think, that a lot of us miss, is that there's already people today who effectively have that experience of everything being done and taken care of. And that's wealthy people. Not particularly wealthy, but I have cleaners and now everyone has Uber. So I've got a private driver And I have access to all the knowledge that the pharaohs of Egypt only would have wished for on my cell phone, and every single movie and every single song. And then I can catch a plane and I can fly to the other side of the world. And so the reality is that technology is, because people talk about wealth inequality, I don't think they look at it because you have something I don't, but they don't understand the context of wealth is just it's a unit that we can then spend to acquire things. But as technology changes, what would have cost the entire world to have 3,000 years ago, you buy the cell phone for free. And if you just pay for texting and calling because they give you the phone. So the truth is that there are already people that have everything. What are they doing? Why are they not imploding on themselves? It's because, like Tim Ferriss talked about in the 4-Hour Work Week, is you got to find what you want to do. And most people are so committed to the work they're doing and the grind that they're doing that they haven't looked up and said, if I didn't have to do any of this, what would I do? It's why so many lottery winners lose all their money, because they don't know what to do with the money and their time and their energy. So they just buy stuff and then it's all gone, or they just keep working. And it's like, well, what else am I going to do? I'm just going to keep working. And that, I think, is the human flaw that we all need to work on, is how do I find fulfillment in things that isn't me grinding for a paycheck? Because if you can't solve that, then you will struggle when the job disappears. And universal income is not going to fix that, because human beings need purpose. And so the gap is not, do you have money or things? It's, do you have purpose that exists beyond those things? Because if it doesn't, you're going to struggle. And if you do, it doesn't matter what happens. Like if I don't have to do half my job, who cares? Because I've got purpose outside of that job. Great. I don't need to earn any money then, because everything is so cheap and I get it now. The world will struggle, though, because people won't be able to find their purpose outside of their work. That's what I think.
I think that's very accurate. And you know, whenever I became a prodigious noticer, that's when life changed for me. You know, I started noticing how green the grass was, how the sunshine felt on my face, how the wind felt in my hair. You know, I started just like, you're taking off an airplane, like, this is really freaking cool. Like, people don't allow themselves to feel and to notice the life that's happening right in front of them. You know, the little bitty things is really where life is lived. It's in those little magic moments, and then locking in those magic moments and locking them into your memory, because then they're there forever. Right? Like you can relive an experience and a memory. You can feel a feeling from 20 years ago, like it's happening right now. You can step into that moment, boom, you're there. And I think curating those experiences is wonderful. And that's part of life, but also actually paying attention, just paying attention when you're in the moment, or just going through daily life. You know, the phrase stop and smell the roses, that's really what it's all about. Like, when did you stop and smell a rose? When did you actually pay attention to how cool that grass felt? To how, you know, any sensation you're experiencing. You know, if you're driving a sports car and you're like, this is cool, like, this is so cool, like, just let it be cool. I think people are trying to be so cool, they don't experience how cool it actually is, right? They don't really feel the fun. So I think that's part of the enjoyment and the, you know, building that purpose and finding that fulfillment, right? So finding the fulfillment in the little things allows you to start building a life of purpose, and allows you to start building the life you've dreamed of. You're dreaming of it, but it's here right now. A lot of it is here right now. I mean, like you say, the technology has been condensed so much that God, you look at the 1600s, it took a castle and a staff of 400 people to like do everything that you can do right now, you know, with like, you have access to everything, and you can feed yourself and you can get it all delivered to your door. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, we have the same level of wealth that kings had, and not that many generations ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, from my observation, we get to a point in our lives where we realize this, to start paying more attention, and that life's short and it's precious and it's valuable. But we just realize it at a point where it's like, we've got 10 years to go, or I don't know how long we got to go, because I'm at that point in my life and my health because of the choices that I made. And there's a subset that never realized that. But I think that most people get to some point at some time where they're like, shit. And that could be your last hours, last days, last weeks, last months, last years. But I think that the game is getting to there as quick as possible. And so for my kids, I'm like, hey, well, how was your day? And so my kids come up to me and they ask me, like, hey, Daddy, how was your day today? And I'm like, it was really good. And I tell them some things, and they go, that's amazing. Like, what did you do that was fun? And we've just conditioned it into them. So they're as grateful as a 5 and 7-year-old can be, but we're just looking to help sort of train them to see, like you said, be a prodigious noticer, so that they can have that experience now, and not like me at 35, realizing this stuff and going through this kind of wave of like, shit, what have I been doing for 20 years? I'm grateful that I got here and not at 70 when I realized things about life and go, shit, I should have done this 60 years ago, 50 years ago. So I think that's something that all of us can,
I think the loss in life teaches us that, right? So, I mean, everybody's going to have a loss of some type, right? You're going to have a wake up call, let's say, whether it's, losing a family member or just, a friend or whatever, like I was talking with a friend today and it was nobody I knew, but there was a high school student that was turning in it's graduation day tomorrow for them. He's turning in and a semi truck lost his brakes, hit him and killed him. And I'm like, whoa, that is crazy. And I felt so bad for the parents, but I was like, that's a wake up call, right? Like that's a huge wake up call when those things happen, even just around, I didn't even know this guy, but I'm like, man, be grateful, be so grateful. Cause that could happen to anybody. It could have been anybody's kid that was turning in there, And so those moments, those lost moments are the wake up calls that actually get us to pay attention and notice and be like, what am I missing? What else am I missing here? Wait, let's just look. Let's just pay attention. Because when you start paying attention, you can start to find whatever it is you're looking for. You just have to start looking, right? But a lot of times we're busy or we're just flustered or, we're so caught up in the emotion of the moment or, maybe the lack thereof that we miss too much, right? So I think it's those moments that we take for granted that we start to not take for granted. And then it becomes a beautiful gift.
Yeah, I try and reflect on that myself on as much as I can, like a daily basis or a weekly basis. And I just realized now what I'm doing when you said that it's like, what did I miss from the last week? And so that I can become more conscious of it and get as close to real time as possible so that I am noticing the missing so that I can correct the missing. Does that make sense? Like I'm noticing my kids get a bit taller. And so then instead of just going, oh, well, it's life and whatever, I'm like, oh man, so that means that I've missed some of their growing, or I'm going to miss the 7-year-old version of Milan. I'm going to miss the 5-year-old version. And then I think about the 5-year-old version of my eldest and go, wow, that's gone. So am I soaking all this in? And then my wife, I've been with her 15 years or something, and I'll look at her, and she's going to hate that I say this. I'll look at her and I'll be like, man, her skin is changing. And I'm like, I'm going to miss the fox. You know what I mean? One day she's going to be old with me. And so I'm going to love her no matter what when we're old. But I'm going to think of those days when she was 20 something, 30 something. And I'm going to go, man, wouldn't a day with 25-year-old Delcy, with 35-year-old Delcy, that'd be amazing, right? And not that I'm not appreciating what I've got, but understanding that there is a miss that's happening because life is going to disappear. And so there's, as they say, like, I'll trade all the wealth in the world to be 10 years younger, right? With the knowledge that I've got, because you would just like, how different would you live your life, Jason, if you had this context, but you were now 15? It's like, holy crap, I'd be crushing it, right? But I wouldn't change where I'm at because I would lose what I've got. But knowing that, I think then makes you very apparent of right now and how am I using what I've learned and the context that I'm gaining to just live more fully now so that I have less of the big misses, like I wake up 20 years later,
Sat and thought about your day or your week and just had like an inner reflection time. I try to do this every day. I don't always succeed, but I try to like just kind of scan through my day just mentally and be like, there's something I should have done different. There's something I should have, thought about differently or whatever. And I try to, and then you can kind of like erase the bad. And, Master Co actually taught me this. He's like, just think about your entire day, scan the day. And then as you think about it, try to just have that inner reflection and then have a firm resolution to say, here's what I should have done differently. Because then you're actually building your character intentionally every single day. You can take the flub or whatever you did wrong, like, man, I probably should have done that a little bit differently. Probably shouldn't have cut that guy off in traffic or whatever it is, And you say, okay, what should I have done? If I were living my best version of myself, what would that have looked like? And then when you do that, you can say, okay, I'm going to do that tomorrow, right? Like from now on, that's what I'm going to do in that situation. That's what I would have done. That's what I should have done. And that's what I'll do. And I've noticed that as I've done that, well, when I've done it consistently anyway, then I have actually seen vast improvements very quickly. And so I think especially when it comes to thinking about, noticing those little details and like paying attention with your kids and your wife and all that, like that is a beautiful gift to be able to say like, oh, what would I have done differently? Because then you're going to do that the next time.
Yeah, because it's not a video game. There's no restart. There's no let's do that again. There is just figuring it out in real time to the best of your ability and being as resourceful as you can on the things that matter. And I think realizing those things earlier is just so helpful. Like realizing that money doesn't matter to the degree that you should ruin your life and your health over it is an important thing to learn for me at 35 than it is at 70. And I go, so like I can't take any of this with me. And like, it means nothing if I got no friends and loved ones and I had no experiences. And like, I'm saving all my money up to go traveling instead of just going traveling, which is part of the reason why we sold everything and have been traveling for 2 years, because it's like, let's go and live more. Like I went and saw some friends back in New Zealand and I said, hey, what have you been up to? And they're like, not much, I went, holy shit. Like I went to 8 countries and 18 cities and took like 10,000 photos and videos and whatever. And I lived so much in this year. And that for me, it was not a judgment. It was just like I'm going to keep doing this. Like, like if I didn't, my life would have just been that for a year. And that's great, but that's not what I want right now. I want more of this. So I'm just going to keep doing this until it's not fun.
I love that, man. That is perfect. That is living your best life. Really is. And like I used to be very much future focused. Okay. And I still have a tendency to be very future focused. Like I have a tendency to think in decades, and that's just how I'm designed. But I started being like, let's just do the trip now. Like, why not? Like, just book it, And I would just I started doing more and more travel. And that was really very eye-opening because the more you travel, the more you see, the more you expand your mind, the more you start to understand, right? Like, it's a very opening experience whenever you have the differential of different places you go in the world. I was in Mumbai, India earlier this year, and that was like a whole different concept for me. And then I went out to like middle of nowhere, India, and went to an ashram out there. And it was like, okay, like this is a whole different world. Like it's a whole different world, but it was beautiful. It was amazing. And there were some experiences there I had that I would have never dreamt of. And I was like, I am so blessed. Like this is such a great lifetime, and I feel blessed now. Like we're getting ready to go, and I'm going to go to California tomorrow. Actually, no, Saturday, and then I'm going out. We're going to go tour the Sequoias, and then I'm doing a class with Master Co. And then I'm going to St. Louis to do a trade show. And then I'm flying to Chicago for another project, and then I'm coming back home. And it's like people think that's crazy, but I'm like, why not? Like I can work from anywhere.
That ability to I worked hard to make sure that I had location freedom, not just time and financial freedom. But I think that a lot of us can pull more of that into our lives if we're more conscious of our decisions around our money, how we're investing it, what skills we're acquiring in our free time. Like we all have 8 hours to work a day, 8 hours to sleep, and 8 hours to do something else. And it's where you're spending that time will determine your future. And the way that I think about it is, James at 40, he's going to exist. Hopefully, unless I get hit by a bus, touch wood. But he's going to exist, and he's going to be happy or he's going to be pissed at 35-year-old James because of the decisions that 35-year-old James made, because of how 35-year-old James was feeling, because of 25-year-old James or, whatever. And so I think if we think about the fact that we're not living for ourselves right now, we're living for James at 36, James at 37, because he's going to wake up one day and be like, James, you're a dick. Like, why didn't you do more crunches? We're at the beach now and you don't have a 6-pack. But you could have. I could have that had you made better decisions, James, right? And so when I've started to do that and bring more awareness to the fact that I'm living from actions that were in the past and decisions that were in the past, I'm trying to take a lot more of a conscious approach to things now so that it just gets better and better and better. And we have more of that flexibility. And technology allows for a lot of that. And people are going to start seeing that a lot more as well. Whether you can work from wherever, it's like, what are you doing after work? How are you being present with your kids? If you only get them a little bit on the weekend, what are you doing to maximize that? If you only get a little bit of time to take care of your health or whatever, what are you doing to maximize that time that you do have? So rather than worrying about, oh, well, that's easy for you to say and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, there's a person out there who's living a worse life than you. It always could be worse. Yes, it could be better, but it always could be worse. So what are you grateful for in now with what you've got? Because you could take it away. You think your life's bad right now? I'm going to take both your legs. It's probably worse, right? Unless you can reframe it for yourself. And I think that, I don't know who said this best, but it's like life happens, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional because it's not what happens to you, it's what you do and how you respond to that thing that matters. And too often, especially with social media, we're looking up at things and going, oh man, that's not fair. We're not looking down and going, wow, that's not fair. God, I'm lucky. I'm so grateful. How can I maximize what I've got? And I think if all of us look at that, we could all have a better experience of life, have more fulfillment, have more success too. Because success follows people who have the right frame and take the right actions. And it's really hard to take the right actions, even figure out what those are, if your frame of mind is that everyone's taken things from me and that billionaire is why I'm where I am. It's like, no, it's not. You're where you are because of the choices that you've made. Reconcile that and make some different choices. And your experience will shift if you allow enough time. People don't do that either, I think. Not allow enough time for things to shift.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like, who do you listen to, right? There's so many people out there who have so much advice and everybody's got an opinion, right? But the person who actually has the results and where you want, a lot of times, people will either discount that or they'll maybe not pay enough attention to that. And I think when you start to figure out there's actually probably a very select few who have what you actually want, that have a similar skill set that you can follow, right? And then it's modeling and matching and figuring out, like, how do I accelerate this time frame as much as possible? But living that balanced life, like having that, I was not very balanced for many years of my life. Like I was very money focused, and that did buy me some freedom. It actually did, give me some options and choices that I wouldn't have had without that. However, I sacrificed years to get to that, right? And I followed a very hard path because that's what I knew. So, I'm like, now if I had the same knowledge, like you said, if you had the same knowledge as you were 15 and you do it again, man, a whole different world would have opened up to me. But that wasn't my path, And so I have to just accept that and go, well, all right, what can I do right now? Who do I listen to right now? What am I going to pay attention to right now? And where your focus goes, energy flows, and you start to figure out how to make up the meaning, because you do get to make up the meaning. There is not, like, you don't get the life you have, you get the life you focus on, and you get to make up whatever's happening to you. And like, what does this mean? Or what else could this mean? Or how else could this be, transformed to where it could actually be a benefit for me,
I'm watching The Chosen at the moment, and there's a scene where, and for those who Christians and things, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'm very new to this, where Jesus goes up to the man at the spring who's been there for 20 years or whatever. And he asks him if he wants to be healed. And the guy says, well, yeah. And he's like, then pick up your stuff, let's go. And I think that what I really liked about that was a lot of us are not wanting to be healed. We're not.
If you read the Bible, Jesus, I think in every instance, just about, maybe not every instance, but just about every instance, I notice he says, do you believe that you can be healed? Do you believe I can heal you? And if they say yes, they were healed, right? But he says, your belief has made you whole. Right. So he's saying, listen, it wasn't even me. I was just a channel. Right. And he's like, your belief made it happen. Right. And then there was a segment, he went to his hometown and it said he couldn't even do any miracles in his own town because no one believed. So that tells you the power of belief and the placebo effect, like all those things, like the power of the human mind is amazing. Right. And we are amazing, but we deny that and we basically push that away. But you're exactly right. Like he chose to pick up his mat and walk. When he made the choice, that's when the ability came, right? So our ability comes from belief in ourselves and just taking the action.
And I think that the misinterpretation of that is that somehow an example for example is, I'm missing a leg. Well, I'm just going to believe in my legs and come back. And it's like, no, you're missing the point of the metaphor and the literal situation. The situation is that you're not limited by the lack of leg. It's the meaning that you're giving the things, which is creating the limitation. And so if you believe that you are healed, you're not healed of the lack of leg. You're healed of the limitation of the lack of leg, so that you just get up and just carry on with your life. And so when Jesus is doing this, in my interpretation, it's the suffering. It's the ending of suffering. It's not the fixing of problems. And all of us live in suffering to some degree. And it's our ability to make that decision to go, no, I'm now ending it because I believe there is more than the suffering. And it's not just, oh yeah, I believe it. It's like, I believe it. And sometimes you're telling yourself you believe it, but you don't. And if you're honest with yourself, you would say that you don't. Or if you observed what you were doing in someone else, you would be like, they don't believe. They're just saying it. And it's that reconciling that's where the healing or the growth or the opportunity comes from. I believe that I'm worthy of this opportunity and that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make it happen is not just a knowing in your mind and then doing some stuff. It transcends that. And that's what that scene and that context in the Bible for me represents. It's like ending of the suffering and making that decision, not growing the leg back or fixing the blindness necessarily in that kind of way, although that, may well have happened. For me, it's the suffering, it's the self-limited that I've made a decision like, no, I'm going to shift now more than it is the other parts. You know what I mean? And I think we all can buy into that, whether you're Christian or not. We should be living like that.
Yeah, I think, that's a principle that's timeless across all religion. I think that is applicable in in business and in life in every area, actually. You think about, I think where people get caught up is they think they have to know how, right? They think they got to know the how. And we're taught this, that it's like a 50-50 balance of like, okay, I need the mindset, and I also need to know the skills or the how or the whatever to do. I need to be able to do something, right? And really, it's not even close to 50-50. I think that's where the lie comes in. Most people think it is a balance. What the real balance is about 99.5% mindset and about 0.5% skills or the how. Now, the skills are still important. They're vitally important. You have to have them. Without it, it doesn't work. You can't get to 100%. But most people spend way more time on this than they should, when they should be spending most of their time on mindset and thinking, and that thinking that creates that reality, right?
100%. 100%. Well, Jason, what would you leave for people at the end of this if they've listened to this episode and they're thinking, I want to find out more about you, or maybe you've got some sort of final thoughts to help kind of reconcile the things we've spoken about and bring it into a nutshell? What would you share for the listener?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I guess if people do want to follow me, it's Jason Shipley Official on both Instagram and I think on YouTube as well. And then Midwest Custom Engineering is actually my company. That's more of what we actually have way bigger following on YouTube on that than we do on my personal stuff. But, there's an endless number of ways to live a balanced, successful life. I don't really believe in balance as much as I do in integration, right? Like, I think you can integrate every aspect of your life to create the life of your dreams, but you're going to have to be really good at something. You got to become an expert at something. So that does not mean necessarily balance. That means that you're going to become really good, best in the world maybe, at this one thing. And then you're going to take the rewards from that and learn how to integrate other things into your life. And so whether that's your finances, maybe that's for a period. I mean, the difficult thing is life changes. Everything changes and everything ends, right? So in one area of your life, you may be an expert for a season, right? You may get finances figured out, but after you got a couple $100 million sitting there, you're like, I don't really need to work on finances anymore. I kind of got this figured out. So your shift may go towards health. I mean, you saw that with like Jeff Bezos and all that. Like, all of a sudden he's jacked and you're like, well, what happened here? Well, the dude's a billionaire. He doesn't need to worry about money. He's still doing stuff, but it's like, man, I probably better take care of my health so I can actually be here to enjoy this money. So, then the priorities shift. And so I do have my 8F philosophy. I have like faith and family and finances and fitness, and then following and freedom and friends and fun. And I think I try to build a little bit of that into my calendar consistently, because there was a time where I had no fun. There were a time where I didn't really have a whole lot of friends. There was times where I didn't have a balanced life, but it wasn't because I was needing balance necessarily. I found much more balances come from becoming an expert, but then finding little ways to integrate that in, and then finding ways where I can integrate that with my children, with my family, with my friends. I can actually have that time. I can multitask, but I make sure it's in my calendar. When I schedule it, then it becomes reality. And so I think that's what I tell people is, don't worry about trying to become an expert at everything. Just focus in, become really good at one thing, and then find a way to integrate the other things into your life so you can live a happy, fulfilled life, because you can have it all. You just got to figure out, how can I have it all?
Exactly. And I think that the caveat that I would add to that as well is, you can have it all if you can let go of this need to have it all. Like, people think they'll only be happy if they've got $1 billion. People think they'll only be happy if they never fight with their spouse. They'll only be happy if their children are perfect and my house is like this, etc. Having it all for me is not literally having it all. It's understanding what matters to you and then going and getting that, because that's the only things that will truly make you happy, is when you're able to reconcile that,
Yeah, I had a mentor that told me one time, he said, you can't have everything you want, but you can have anything you want. So just figure out the one thing you want and then you go make that happen. I'm like, that was pretty good advice.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you, Jason. This has been amazing. There's been a ton of value. I'm excited to have our algorithm go through and pull out the protocol ones. And, let's stay in touch. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you, James. Appreciate it.
That's this week's Protocol 1. If you want to know exactly where you stand across all 6 vectors, take the free assessment at 6vectorassessment.com. It takes 5 minutes. The truth takes less. Don't settle.